And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And as they say, there are four. We are at the 2022 MLR Conference Championship games. One for the West, one for the East. The final four teams left at the end of the elimination playoff games of last weekend, which were, I want to say were exciting, but actually were kind of one-sided. We won't go into too many details. There's other places that can do that. We are previewing the upcoming conference games and doing our pick'ems. We are still involved with SuperBru. So thank you very much for those who are playing. There were quite a few of people who kind of just gave up and decided not to participate. Sucks, but it's alright. Enough people did compete, and there still is somewhat of a chance. Some movement has been going on in the final rankings, but we will get into that in just a second. Let's go over the conference games. Again, the eliminator games, a little bit one-sided. If you saw last weekend, Seattle Seawolves and Rugby New York were both victorious in their respective games. Seattle taking down the San Diego Legion, Rugby New York taking down Rugby ATL. And now we are again in the conference championship games. Western Conference, Eastern Conference. Let's focus on the Western Conference first. Saturday, June 18th, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time kickoff. The Seattle Seawolves go over to the Houston SaberCats to Aviva Stadium in Houston, Texas. This is a interesting matchup because it is a rematch from just a couple weeks ago where the Seattle Seawolves were victorious over the Houston SaberCats, but literally in the last couple of minutes, Houston scored 2 tries to get 2 bonus points, which at the time, eliminated Seattle and San Diego from the playoffs. Of course, with all the craziness that happened in the MLR, both Seattle and San Diego ended up making it into the playoffs. But that was a very, very interesting game because in that game, Seattle was very, very dominant, just like they've been dominant so far. The last couple of games, Seattle on a 3-game winning streak, including wins over LA and Houston. Getting hot at the right time, and honestly, especially their game against San Diego in the elimination round last weekend, Seattle is looking like the most dangerous team in the MLR on the western side. Houston, as I mentioned before, in that loss to Seattle, though they did stumble themselves into the playoffs, are on a 2-game losing streak. And again, despite that last-minute scoring of a couple of tries, have not looked exactly as dangerous as one would think throughout the season. The inconsistency for the Houston team has been pretty apparent, and it still looks pretty apparent now. They did get the week to have a bye, earning that number 1 seed in the Western Conference, so they have been able to kind of lick their wounds. It'll be interesting to see if that helped them or not. But right now, momentum, and rugby is a game of momentum, is purely in the side of Seattle, who at one time were looking like they weren't even making the playoffs, and now the only two-time MLR champions look like they could make a run for a 3-time championship. Honestly, these 2 games are a lot harder to call, I feel, than last week's games. I am going to go, even though home field advantage to the Houston, I am going with Seattle in this game. And just for those who are curious, these 2 have played twice. They split over the season. As I mentioned before, Seattle took the win recently. Go all the way back to, I believe it was week number 6 in Houston. Houston beat Seattle, but the game was 21-19, so a very, very close game. And again, right now, Seattle is looking like the dominant team. Then we move on to the Eastern Conference Championship, Sunday, June 19th, noon kickoff, so early kickoff time, Pacific Standard Time for West Coast fans. Rugby New York heading over to Veterans Memorial Stadium in Quincy, Massachusetts to take on the New England Free Jacks, the team that has been pretty much dominant the entire season. Yet, interesting, if you look at the grand scheme of things, New England has won 5 of their last 7 games, but they have only won 1 of their last 3, and one of those losses in their last 3 games was to Rugby New York. Now, granted, it was a very interesting game, kind of weird, very defensive-minded game. New York walk away with the win 21-14. That was in New York. It's a little bit different here now, facing off in New England. When they did play in New England did win, but that game was also very close, 29-26. New York is on a hot streak, just like Seattle has been. They have won 6 of their last 7, including that win over the New England Free Jack. They were very, very dominant over Rugby ATL. Now, granted, the big question is, and again, odd playing at the very end of the Atlanta Rugby New York game, where Rugby New York had the game well in hand. The regulation time was up, and yet for whatever reason, New York had the ball and they decided to continue playing. And in that process, one of their best players, Ed Fideau, top try scorer in the regular season for MLR, ended up looking like he hurt himself. I don't know how bad that injury is. We will wait to see what the lineup looks like. But if New York was without one of their strongest players, man, those last couple of minutes when New York could have easily just ended the game by kicking the ball out of field might come back to haunt them, especially again against a very, very, very tough New England team. Granted, New England has looked a little human in the last couple of games, and that loss to New York definitely get momentum in the side of New York. But again, I feel these games are a lot harder to pick, but as much as I want to go with New York in this one because the momentum is purely on their side, I really still feel New England is that number 1 team. They had a week to heal themselves. Sure, Bodine Walker will be taking the field, especially if Ed Fideau is out of the game for New York. Man, New England looks like the dominant team, and again, they have been dominant throughout the whole season. New York has a slight edge, probably in the mental game, but I feel home field advantage again. I feel New England will walk away with this. So, it's setting up to be actually a pretty exciting MLR final, in my opinion, with Seattle facing against New England. But we shall see. Those are our 2 picks for the game. Let's move over now to our SuperBru MLR Rugby411 pick'ems. Boom! We had 2 games, so you had to make sure you picked those. And congratulations, Frisco Flame, brother, man. What is that, like maybe your 4th golden cap? After, again, Frisco Flame is like the poster boy for this whole pick'em series because very first week, he had the wooden spoon, and now golden caps. It's amazing. So Frisco Flame, 4.5. MSDRFC, 83. All J Long, Tex, and Scary Larry Rugby all came in second, 3.5. I don't know exactly what the bonus points were that Frisco got, but he was able to scrounge up 1 more bonus point than everybody else. They all got both games scored correctly. And then at the very bottom of the top, USA Rugby, Union, and League Fan with 3 points. Good job, brother. Unfortunately, Footy Balls did not pick. I don't know if maybe he just felt that the playoffs were over. He obviously wasn't watching the latest videos where I was saying you have to pick. Make sure. So, Footy Balls, no picks. Let's move over now to the overall standings. Bam. And again, most things stay the same, but oddly enough, although I didn't have the greatest week last weekend, I actually went up, which was weird. All J Long, just like New England, been dominant all season, 116.75. Pretty sure, even with the last 2 weeks, because I do believe we also picked for the championship game, I think All J Long will probably be on top as we end near the end of the season. So all J Long, you might as well start thinking of what shirt you want me to buy for the MLR. Excachas at second, 104. I oddly, like I mentioned before, moved up to number 3, 100.83. Harry just slightly behind me, 100.58. And then Frisco Flames hanging in there at number 5, 99.83. again, as much as I would like to say it's still anybody's game, still pick, guys. We still have these championship games and then these conference championship games and then the championship game for the Shield. Make your picks all day long. You know, granted he's 12.75 points up on Excatcha. Anything could happen. So that's it. That's the video. Again, it's short because there's really not much else to talk about. And again, it'll be interesting to see if this plays out. Even if we have the other combination, Houston, New York, Seattle, Houston, Free Jacks, I still feel that we have some exciting action to come up and an exciting MLR Shield Championship. So again, make sure you still do your pick'ems. Make sure you watch. Don't miss out. We are at the end of the season. Let's see who walks away with the Shield. And as always, thank you very much for watching my videos. And I'll see you guys on the pitch.